All right, welcome back and thank you for clicking on my video. I know it's been a little while, but I just had a crazy work schedule and I'm still getting used to it. But today, I'm giving you some technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and Nvidia, and we're going to hop right into it. But just one thing first, I'm going to be making videos more throughout the week now that I have a little hang on my schedule. So look back every single night, and most nights I will be putting out a video. Thank you. Let's get into it. As we get into the SPY, a lot has happened since we last spoke, okay? So we want to point out the first thing is I updated those risk ranges for the week ahead for the SPY. That'd be 489.03 to the upside and 475.83 to the downside. And you'll notice something pretty cool here. We're actually seeing the top side of that range start to get tested. One thing that we could pay attention to when all of this was happening, we were mentioning how, the SPY was holding up right where it needed to for a bounce, and there it gets that bounce, and then we pull back and we come up. There's a very easy structure to see here. We have a left, we have a head, and we have a right shoulder. So now we can see this measured move here, and let's see where we might end up in the near future. We're going to put it right around, let's put it right at this top here. Okay, so if we put it at this top here, you can see the upward side of that risk range is maybe going to be the target as of next week. Now that we have this narrative, now that we have the narrative SPY to new all-time high, you're going to see some positivity most likely come in, and then that is going to be ripped away. This narrative is most likely going to cause the MACD to curl up, give us some kind of point of reference in the future over the next couple weeks, and then we'll get that obvious little divergence here on the MACD and the RSI at the same time. Qs have a little bit of a different setup. Now I will give you those weekly ranges for the week ahead. That would be 430.20 to the upside, and then we have 412.16 to the downside. And the funny part about this is it lines up with where we broke out from and the previous high right in here. So that will be a very interesting level if we do get towards that pretty early on in the week. I would maybe expect a bounce, as this could just be some kind of retest to then head higher. But I wanted to talk about these weekly ranges on the Qs specifically because this thing is starting to break out of some key resistance trend lines here. So we need to pay attention to this because we have that weekly range that is outside of the monthly range for January. And if you remember at the beginning of the month when we were talking about these monthly ranges for January, we were stating how we need to pay attention if this is able to break down, right? Break down to lower levels and then get outside of it for some kind of bounce to get back in it by the end of the month. Or if there was going to be some kind of buying back up to get outside of it and then come back down into it by the end of the month. So right now it looks like we are pointing in this direction. And so with the narrative of SPY to new all-time high, we're in a new bull market. This is the time where you need to be a little bit cautious in the market because you can see on the daily we're oversold. We have this MACD cross. We're setting up some kind of divergence. So if we wanted to quickly go up and then get some bad news that reverses us back down, look how close we would be to that center line on the MACD to starting a negative trend on the daily scale. We were paying attention to a 2 hour, so I just wanted to talk about this. And you guys know, if you've been following this channel for a while now, that once we do get into positive territory, that's when I really start to, take the shorts off, right? I take the gas pedal on the shorts. I let loose on that a little bit. I just kind of pull off of it because, hey, we're getting into positive territory, which means if we remain up there, we could be in a positive trend. So we really wanted maybe right around here or even right around the 50 on the 2 hour. We wanted that to start to turn back around, curl over on this MACD. That way it's closer to the negative territory. You'll notice that we did get this crossing. We cross back up. We remain in positive territory. What happens to the trend? We get an extension in the trend. Okay, so really this is something that you want to pay attention to, whether your shorts are losing value or something, because this is a pretty good buyback. What you just want to focus on when it does curl over, does it get into negative territory or does it quickly get back up into positive territory? So at this point, once you saw this downturn, once we see this big jump, we should not be surprised that this thing is going to head higher. And you can see it on the 2 hour, left, head, right shoulder, almost dead even across with the two shoulders here. Very, very good play if you did find it, and congratulations if you did. One stock that I wanted to talk about was Apple, and I'm just going to pull up the weekly. That crash signal actually did confirm, okay? So this means there are some bad things on the horizon, but we could get some wonky behavior. I told you right away that we wanted most likely a SPY to a new all-time high narrative, and that's what we're getting right now. So would you be surprised if Apple actually made a little bit higher high here? No, I wouldn't. I think that as of right now, if this is able to curl up one more time, it is going to most likely be short-lived. We're going to test this high, maybe creating some kind of triple top, or we are going to make a new high, giving us some kind of divergence on the daily scale. So if I pull up the daily here, you'll notice that we were able to get into negative territory. So when we do see those sell-offs, they're pretty decent drops, right? This second sell-off to give us kind of a double bottom down here. Now we double bottom out. I'll pull up the 2 hour so you can see that, how it gets into positive territory. We're getting that curling up right by the center line. So this could go on for a few days, meaning we're most likely going to test this high or come up and create a new one, most likely at this trend line of resistance. So it's something to pay attention to, and I will be updating my Patreon, giving you guys that risk range for the week ahead. And thank you so much if you are subscribed to my Patreon. There's 2 shorter time frames that I really think are a good learning exercise, and that would be this 2 hour here and the 30-minute that I was going to go into right over here. So we're going to go into the 2 hour first. And what you'll notice here is we have pretty even levels down here, but you'll notice how much closer we are to getting to that center line. So this would be some sort of, I would call it divergence, and you have that at the same time as the RSI. Guess what? Right when that does confirm, we get that big pop. Okay, so we get a big pop upward. Now we're actually past this resistance zone. Wouldn't surprise me at all to dip back down into it and then go higher. That's overall what I'm looking for. Because we're towards overbought territory a little bit. So I think that we would need to digest for a day or so, and then maybe we see another pop higher in Apple. But this is a very good learning opportunity here to show you guys how much closer we get to that positive territory on a 2 hour, and how these 2 hour divergences really do curl over that daily. The 30-minute here is something I wanted to talk about right in this price action. So you'll notice we do have a subtle divergence right here. Okay, so we have one divergence, but we're still pretty far away from that center line. What happens? We get one more little dip down, creating a little triple divergence right here at this low. So this actually would have been a good sign to at least hold off on your shorts, right? Take some profit on your shorts and see what happens from there. Play the bounce, and if it's able to get into positive territory, maybe you want to ride this up a little bit. Now we did get a second dip down, and at that point you would pull up the 2 hour and see how close it is to that positive territory, knowing now that the 2 hour divergences really like to curl over those daily charts. So you can really see these divergences over here that could have given you a good sign, hey, maybe I need to flip to bullish for a second, be a little contrarian on Apple because we're getting a little triple divergence. It's at the same time as the RSI, so we're most likely going to see a bounce, and the thing bounces right away by 3 points. So it's just something to pay attention to. Something in these shorter time frames that you can really look for are those divergences outside of those weekly expected moves. Amazon, we were talking about going into the very obvious zone, and that's exactly what happened, right? We went into this very, very obvious zone in here. We said if it wanted to dip a little bit lower, it could come down and grab some in here, but it found enough buyers in here. Now it's curled up. So now we're getting a little wonky price action, a little wonky behavior on the MACD, but we do see that curling up. If we wanted to make a higher high here, I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't think it'll be for too long. We do have earnings right around the corner coming in February. Maybe we do see some kind of selling, buying, and selling, and then we start to come down. On Amazon, I'd really be paying attention to those weekly ranges for this week if you are a part of my Patreon. This is where I'll be clear that this is all bullish stuff, right? We have some structure now. We could even consider this a tiny left. Maybe this is the head and this is our right shoulder to head higher. This does have some room in it. I want to be clear about that. This is not a bearish sign whatsoever. This is actually saying, hey, this wants to go a little bit higher. I just wouldn't be surprised anywhere up in here if we start to get some bad news, if we start to see uninversion of the yields. Everything like that could start to happen over the next few weeks. So we really want to be on our toes and just position ourselves accordingly. Now, Tesla, the main thing we were looking at with Tesla was this area down in here, and we started to hit that area, saw some wicks coming up, but we weren't able to hold it. We actually gap a little bit lower, and then we see that kind of rug pull come in fully. So up in here, we have that 2 hour divergence. We said, hey, look for some kind of bounce around this area. We get a couple green bars, a couple wicks, and then we see that drop. And it really, we're pointing at this dropping off because once it gets into negative territory was really where we want to pay attention. That's actually right around this bar here that we got into negative territory on the daily. That's something we were paying attention to on Tesla, a little different than other stocks because it was just so close to it that if it rolls over, that's when the selling really comes in. So if you're able to remain in that negative territory on the daily for quite some time, you're going to see more selling come in. And guess what? We go from about 235 all the way down to 207 pretty quick. And we already had that marked off for you, that 207.42. We knew it was important. We can even pull over this zone at the same time and say, hey, this zone in here, we marked it as important in the past. Looks like it's important right now because we are starting to see some green bars off of that area, even in that area. So we have to see what happens from here. Most likely, if there is positivity going forward in the overall market, Tesla will try to catch up to that. We would just look for maybe even this level in here becoming resistance, and that's where I'm going to pay attention to those weekly ranges. Nvidia has been taking off like a rocket ship, and I'm just going to check the monthly range for Nvidia real quick. 439.14 to the upside. I'm just going to give that to you guys. Okay, so the 439, what is that? 439.14 to the upside is the overall monthly expected move that is somewhere right in here. Okay, so we want to pay attention to Nvidia right now because it is well outside of its monthly expected move. That's where we can get some crazy upside, and that looks like what's happening right now. But 68% of the time, we actually see that come back down into this zone. We really want to pay attention to that over the next couple weeks, see if Nvidia has some weakness in it. And if I pull up a 2 hour or something like that, we're going to see there's little divergences setting up on the MACD and the RSI at the same time. But this thing could just keep going as of next week because we're outside of those ranges. So we really want to pay attention to. I would really like this to kind of, reconnect, maybe come test some kind of level down in here before it goes higher. Then it would give you some kind of divergence up in here. So like a very clear one. Because up in here right now, we do have such good buying. It's not close to the center line. I would like this to kind of dip a little bit lower and then curl back up, getting me nice and close to that center line so I can be a little more confident that, hey, this has a very good chance to reverse. This is something that we're going to have to talk about is these yields getting back into positive territory. If we still see continued strength in these yields, while the market actually keeps going up, that's what really invites a more crash scenario, a bigger drop coming, because usually we have to catch back up to TLT. So you can see that we do have a little bit of a channel going on here, right? So if that channel is not broken, we can continue upward. Now, if we wanted to break down from here, you see this left side, maybe we do get some kind of dip down, bounce off this area, get a right shoulder, and start to head lower, seeing TLT get that big bounce, maybe even the uninversion of those yields. And you'll see TLT, so just compare this to the market, right? Let's flip back over to the SPY for just a split second. You can see that the market is actually heading up. TLT is actually continuing to head down near the area where we expect a bounce. So even though there could be a bounce from this area, the SPY heading up like this, and the TLT is actually heading down, which is a pretty good signal that one of the two is wrong. Now, HYG, little different story, but you'll notice it's not making a new high. Looks like some consolidation, but as of right now, we just have to pay attention because, the SPY is making that new high. HYG is not. HYG is actually coming down to lower levels. Now, could we get a bounce from here? Yes, you can. But the overall point of this is just to point out, hey, if the SPY, if the traders in the overall market end up being wrong and these people end up being right, especially because of TLT, they're going to have to catch up, and we might see a sudden drop over the next couple of weeks, depending when that starts. But I believe that we're going to keep going up for a few days before we see any kind of weakness come in. So we'll be looking out for those divergences. For the VIX, I really just wanted to point out that we had this wedge way back towards January 11th. We see us start to move sideways from that wedge, even get a retest of the bottom of our little range we've been in. And what do we do once we test that bottom? Well, we get some buying back up and boom, volatility explodes. Now volatility is starting to subside. So what I want to do is just show you guys on a 30-minute how we could see when that volatility has a good chance of subsiding. And you can see right here, all right? So when we started to get that big bounce in the market, what was the VIX technicals telling us? Well, it was telling us that the VIX was getting some dying out in momentum, right? So we had the momentum dying out. We had a bunch of divergences going all the way back to here, all the way to these highs. We see those on the 30-minute, which most of the time on the 30-minute, I like to use the 30-minute to curl over the 2-hour. And you'll notice once those divergences actually did break down, get into negative territory, we really started to see a huge bounce in the market. So would I be surprised for this to create some kind of 30-minute divergence before we see more volatility come back in? No, I really like my 30-minute divergences for the VIX. That could mean we get some kind of sudden drop, see some more buying, get some consolidation, and then see another drop down to a little bit lower level, maybe testing this area again, and then we can look for some divergences in the near future. So this is something that I'm going to pay attention to this week, and I'll be updating you throughout the week on the VIX. One thing I wanted to point out was Bitcoin today. Okay, Bitcoin was able to get into negative territory with a huge divergence. So my buddy at work actually was talking to me about this, my boss, weirdly enough. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm holding a bunch of Bitcoin. We're starting to see a surge." He's like, "I'm real happy about it." I go, "Well, based on what usually happens, there's something called buy the rumor, sell the news. There's divergences up there. He doesn't know what those are, but I'm just telling him, hey, it's really something people are excited about. But once the news comes out, it's most likely going to be a bad sign." He sold up in here, called me a couple days later and said, "Holy crap, I just saved myself 10%." So Bitcoin is starting to drop off. It's getting into negative territory. You see that divergence. And this is overall what I think will happen with the SPY. You're going to get a pretty obvious divergence up here, and then we're going to see some kind of sudden drop. See that try to maybe even hold up for a little bit and then get a bigger drop in the near future. So paying attention to Bitcoin, it's just good to see maybe what Bitcoin is doing, because Bitcoin usually does something first and then the market follows a little bit behind by a week or two. So the main takeaway here is now we have that all-time high narrative in the SPY going on throughout the media. We're hearing a lot of this is a new bull market. We're hearing a lot of don't short this. We're hearing a lot of stuff. And you might not want to right away. This is a very, very bullish market at this moment, but we're noticing that is this the best place to invest? Not necessarily. And I think we have a sudden drop coming in the near future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am getting back into my video making groove, so please, please, please like this video, share it with a friend, send me a comment, tell me how you've been doing, and I really do appreciate it. I really like making these videos. I just got busy for a couple of weeks there with my more hours going on at work. So thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have all the luck in the world trading ahead, and I hope you have a great, great night.